The appraiser's clipboard is heavy, made of cold-rolled aluminum that clanks against his brass belt buckle as he walks. He is a man named Arthur, 58 years old, with a habit of clicking a silver ballpoint pen 3 times before he writes anything down. The house is a small 2-bedroom craftsman on Glenwood Street in Duluth, Minnesota. It is November, and the wind off Lake Superior carries the smell of wet gravel and dead birch leaves. Arthur is here to value the estate of a woman who lived here for 60 years. He walks through the kitchen, noting the cracked green linoleum, the copper pipes greening with oxidation under the sink, and the faint, sweet smell of damp plaster. In the hallway, between the bathroom and the small bedroom that once belonged to a child, he stops. On the pine doorframe, there are 32 horizontal pencil marks. The first mark is 3 feet from the floor. Next to it, written in blue ballpoint ink that has faded to a dull lavender, is the name Arthur, dated September 12, 1971. Arthur stops clicking his pen. He looks at his own name, written in his mother's hand. He reaches out and presses his thumb against the mark. He is now 5 feet 10 inches tall. His thumb is dry, lined with the deep whorls of middle age. The boy who stood there 49 years ago was 3 feet tall. A probate appraisal is an exercise in measuring what remains. But as Arthur stands in the drafty hallway, he is confronting a quiet, scientific mystery. The boy who stood against this wood is not merely old. He is physically, biologically, gone. To understand where the boy went, we have to travel 4,000 miles east to Stockholm, Sweden, to the Karolinska Institute. There, in a basement laboratory filled with the low hum of centrifuges and the sterile scent of isopropyl alcohol, a neurobiologist named Jonas Frisen spent the early years of the 21st century looking at human tissue through a mass spectrometer. For decades, science had struggled to answer a fundamental question about the human body. How much of us is original equipment? We knew that cells divided, but we did not know if the cells we were born with stayed with us until the grave, or if we were like the legendary ship of Theseus, constantly replacing our planks until no original timber remained. Frisen found his answer in the history of global catastrophe. Between 1955 and 1963, the sky above the Earth was repeatedly torn apart by nuclear explosions. The United States and the Soviet Union were locked in a frantic race to build bigger, more destructive thermonuclear weapons. These tests, detonated in the remote deserts of Nevada and the frozen wastes of Novaya Zemlya, did more than shake the Earth. They released a massive, sudden surge of neutrons into the upper atmosphere, where they collided with nitrogen atoms to create a rare, heavy isotope of carbon, carbon-14. This was the bomb pulse. Overnight, the concentration of carbon-14 in the world's atmosphere doubled. Once the weapons fell silent, and the limited test ban treaty of 1963 went into effect, this extra carbon-14 did not disappear instantly. Instead, it began to leak slowly out of the atmosphere. Every year, trees absorbed it through photosynthesis. Grass took it in. Cows ate the grass, turning it into milk and beef. Humans ate the plants and the animals, incorporating that carbon-14 into their own bodies. Frisen realized that this atmospheric decline was a biological stopwatch. Every time a cell in a human body divides, it must create a new copy of its DNA. To build that DNA, the cell pulls carbon atoms from the blood, which in turn come from the food we eat. Therefore, the level of carbon-14 locked inside the DNA of any given cell is a perfect record of the atmosphere in the year that cell was born. It is a birth certificate written in nuclear fallout. With this tool, Frisen and his team began to systematically dissect the human body, dating the age of different organs. They discovered that we are not a single age. We are a patchworked quilt of different eras, constantly sewing new fabric onto fraying edges. The lining of your stomach, which must survive a constant bath of hydrochloric acid strong enough to dissolve zinc, is replaced every 5 days. The cells that digested your breakfast this morning did not exist last Monday. Your skin, the thin shield that protects you from the cold air of Duluth and the touch of other people, is completely shed and rebuilt every 2 to 4 weeks. Every hour, you shed about 40,000 dead skin cells. The dust that settles on the furniture of an old house is not dirt. It is the physical remains of the people who lived there, drifting through the air like gray snow. Your red blood cells, which carry oxygen from your lungs to your toes, live for only 120 days before they are caught by the spleen and broken down for parts. Your liver, which processes every drug, drink, and fat you consume, completely renews itself every 300 to 500 days. Even your bones, which feel like permanent ivory pillars, are dynamic and alive. Specialized cells called osteoclasts constantly tunnel through your skeleton, dissolving old calcium with acid, while osteoblasts follow behind them, laying down fresh mineral sheets. Your entire skeleton is completely replaced every 10 years. When Frisen averaged the ages of all these different tissues, he arrived at a startling number. The average age of a human adult cellular body is less than 10 years old. If you are 50 years old, almost nothing of your physical self was present when you were 40. The boy who stood against the doorframe in 1971, whose height was marked with a pencil, is gone. His bones have been dissolved and rebuilt 5 times over. His skin has drifted out of the screen doors and into the yard. His blood is entirely new. He has been thoroughly, systematically disassembled by his own life. But Frisen's mass spectrometer also revealed a deeper, more unsettling truth. The reconstruction is not total. When he tested the cells of the human heart, he found that while some muscle cells are replaced, the rate of renewal is incredibly slow. By the time you reach 50, about half of the heart muscle cells you were born with are still there, beating the same rhythm they began in the dark of the womb. And when he tested the cerebral cortex, the grey matter of the brain where we construct our sentences, hold our grief, and recognize our own reflection, he found almost no cellular division at all. The neurons you have at birth are the neurons you keep. They are the permanent audience in a theatre where the stage is constantly being rebuilt. Most striking of all were the eyes. At the center of the human eye lens sits a small cluster of transparent proteins called crystallins. These proteins are created when you are an embryo, folded into a perfect glass-like sphere to focus light. Once they are formed, they are metabolically locked. They do not turn over. They do not receive new nutrients. This means that when 58-year-old Arthur stands in the hallway of 4212 Glenwood Street, looking at the faded pencil mark from 1971, he is doing so through the exact same physical lenses that looked at the pencil when his mother held it. The eye lens is an unbroken window through which an ancient brain looks out at a brand new body. We are, biologically, temporal anomalies. We are 50-year-old eyes and 50-year-old brains trapped inside a 10-year-old body, trying to navigate a world that is constantly slipping through our fingers. This biological reality recontextualizes our entire relationship with our own past. We tend to think of our personal history as a straight, unbroken thread. We look back at our childhood selves with a sense of continuous ownership. We say, "When I was 10, I wanted to be an astronaut," or "When I was 12, I was broken-hearted." We feel a deep, heavy responsibility to that child. We try to fulfill the promises we made in the dark of our bedrooms decades ago. We carry their shame, their fears, and their expectations like a debt that must be paid to a very demanding creditor. But who is that creditor? The boy who stood against the doorframe in 1971, who cried when his dog died, who wanted to build rockets, is physically dead. The neural pathways that held his specific immediate sensations have been pruned, rearranged, and overwritten by 50 years of learning. The calcium of his bones is gone. The water of his tears has returned to the rain cycle of the Great Lakes. He is not in the room. He is not waiting for you to succeed so he can finally feel proud. He is not watching you fail with disappointment. He has been gone for 40 years. When we spend our adult lives trying to heal the wounds of our childhood, we are often engaging in an impossible task. We are trying to buy medicine for a ghost. We are trying to build a fortress to protect a child who has already vanished into the soil. Arthur clicks his pen 3 times. He writes down the dimensions of the hallway, 8 feet by 4 feet. He writes down the condition of the plaster, fair, with minor settlement cracks. But his eyes keep returning to the lavender ink of his mother's handwriting. He remembers the smell of her perfume, purchased from the Rexall drugstore on the corner. He remembers the cold draft that came off the basement stairs. These memories are held in the permanent, ancient cells of his hippocampus, preserved like insects in amber. But the hand he uses to write on the clipboard is built of different protein chains, different water, different iron. He realizes that he is not the boy. He is the boy's survivor. This is the quiet truth that lives behind the pencil marks on the doorframe. We think of growth as accumulation. We think we are building a house, adding rooms, piling up memories and tissue until we are complete. But biology shows us that growth is actually a process of continuous, gentle eviction. We do not accumulate ourselves, we trade ourselves away. The child does not stay inside us like a Russian nesting doll. The child is consumed to fuel the adult. He gave up his physical existence, piece by piece, so that Arthur could stand in this hallway today. It was a trade made without consent, dictated by the cold, beautiful laws of thermodynamics. If we carry a responsibility to our past, it is not the responsibility of a servant to a master. It is the responsibility of a museum curator to an exhibition. We are the caretakers of the space they left behind. We hold their memories, we look through their lenses, but we do not owe them our lives. Arthur lets go of the doorframe. He steps back into the center of the hallway. The pine wood will remain here after the house is sold, after the new owners paint over the eggshell latex with some modern shade of gray, burying the lavender ink of 1971 under another layer of polymer. The marks will be gone from sight, but they will still be there, pressed against the wood like fossilized leaves in coal. And Arthur will walk out the front door, into the cold Duluth wind, carrying a body that is less than 10 years old, looking through eyes that are 58 years old, entirely free of the boy who made the marks.